Hey Dean, down Sear Performance. We're back to work on the Mustang some more. We left off, we got the turbo placed in, we got the downpipe built, the hot sides all built. But this came in yesterday. This is the Holley Terminator X. I did a different video on it, like an unboxing video, but we'll go through it again, show you. This one's gonna route a little bit different than my truck, but this is the, where's the part number on it? It's the 550909. It's the LS1 like 24X with the EV6 injector connectors. So this is the power harness that goes direct to battery, and then you got the main harness, which goes from the ECU. From the ECU. It's got all your sensors, your CTS, your TPS, IAC, fuel pressure, oil pressure, wide bands, all in there. Everything's in this harness here. The crank sensor, all that stuff's there. And then you got the wide band, the Bosch wide band. I believe it's Bosch. Then your injector, or no, not injector, input output harness, which I'm gonna do a full walkthrough on this one, like how to program the injector, the inputs, outputs. This is like a wideband, like the adapter that they include in there to go to their harness. And then you got the injector harness, which, it's kind of cool that you can buy this kit and say down the road, if you change injectors, you don't have to buy a whole new harness. You just buy the injector harness, and that'll give you, whatever plug you need on your injectors, whether it be EV1, EV6, multi-tech, like the truck one. So you got that, and then you got the 3.5-inch touchscreen. You got the bung for the wideband with the little map adapters that are in the ECU. You like screw these on, and it gives you different size vacuum hoses. Kind of cool. And then the ECU, which is obviously throw that over there. It's the small Terminator X. This is not the Max because we're using a Turbo 400. And then you got your instructions, which follow the instructions. That's the easiest way to do it. Which we've done a few of these now, so it's kind of become repetition with us. So we just follow along and copy exactly what they have in the instructions on every single kit. Especially with the, like your ECU, if you want to call them the trigger wires, your 12 volt signal, 12 volt switched, goes to 12 volt switch. I like to do it like to a dedicated 12 volt switched, which on this car, what I'll do is I'll tap into the stock harness and I'll find that ECU trigger for the stock ECU, and then that way there I know I'm getting 12 volts when it's in a cranking position. Then you got your fuel pump, which we do use this wire, and we run it to a relay. It's just easier to do it that way than to find out you're screwing up your ECU without doing an relay. You got your tach output, all that good stuff, and then you got, these are the 12 volt ignition, 12 volt crank, and ground wires over here. But that battery harness, the first one, this one here, it goes direct to battery. We never put it anywhere other than direct to battery. That's what they tell you to do. That's how we do it. It's got a built-in fuse, so that's kind of nice. The harness has a built-in relay. I'll set up the camera. I'm going to do kind of the same as I did before. I'm going to go through laying the harness out, throwing it through the firewall, figuring out a spot to mount it inside, which I'm kind of thinking along the kick panel over there, kind of where the stock ECU is. I think I'm going to mount it on the outside of the kick panel though, and then just bring the harness up and out that hole where the stock harness came in. So I will get everything set up and ready to go. But yeah, we're gonna get this harness pretty much. The unfortunate thing is we can't really use this intake. This is the LS4 that I talked about in the other one. So we're trying to hunt down like like an LS6 would be nice, or not an LS6, but like a LS3 cathedral port. It has to be a cathedral port. So I believe it's an LS3 or an LS1 or whatever it is. We're trying to hunt one of them down, but worst case scenario, because he did buy a 102 millimeter throttle body. That's what I asked him to get. But worst case scenario, to get the truck up and running, we still have to order the injectors, but I do have the stock injectors from the LS4. They're like 26 pound with the EV6 style plugs, so we can run the injector harness and kind of get an idea on where everything's going to go and loop it and loom it and all that stuff. And I'll just have to unplug those and move them when the new intake comes. They won't have to get moved, but they'll just have to, get moved out of the way, put the new intake on. So yeah, I'll get set up and basically each injector plug is labeled. This one's looks 5, 7, 3 and 1, 2, 4, 6, 8. Simple enough, tells you right where to go. So you got that in. That one did. One. wired up, everything plugged in. There's a few things that aren't on there yet that that I need to do, like the coil packs. We're gonna mount them, somewhere along the top of the shock tower, keep them off the valve covers. So I gotta make a little bracket for those, no big deal. Same with that side, make a bracket. The map sensor, I have a new map sensor coming, but with the way everything's going, it's taking forever for parts to come. But the crank sensor's plugged in. That was actually super easy on this compared to mine. I did the back of the cylinder head, these two wires. Oh, there's one on this side, which is off of the coil bank for the passenger side, and right there it says 2-cylinder head only. Connect 2-cylinder head only. So there's this one here, and then there's the one down over here, right here on this bolt. There's that one there. That's the wire for it. You can see, connect the cylinder head only. So those are connected to the cylinder head. All the injectors are plugged in. Like I said, we're not going to use this intake or possibly the rail. I'm not sure if we're using the rail or not yet, but we'll have to see what intake we can get. And then I undid the loom on this side where they have the fuel pressure wire. I guess they expect you to mount a regulator somewhere off the front of the cylinder head or off the front of like an aftermarket rail, like a lot of guys do. But I'm not a big fan of putting the regulator over there. It's just a personal preference. It's just something I kind of don't like to do. So ours is mounted on the firewall, and being that it's there, the wire would have never have reached over to here. So I just kind of undid it far enough back to right here to where I can pull these 3 wires out for the fuel pressure sensor and plug that in. And same thing I did on the truck. And I have the braided loom that I'll run back on it and keep this clean, and then I'll P-clamp these, probably 2 P-clamps here like that, and then a couple P-clamps on the main harness to keep it on the firewall. The wideband I kind of fed behind the fuel lines and then behind the brake line. The wire for the wideband is just super long, which it's good that it's really long, but a lot of slack to kind of figure out what to do with, so it doesn't hang on the exhaust or anything like that. So I will probably, which I could probably just grab a couple of them right now. I tend to save a lot of these little push clamps that come on every new vehicle nowadays. Man, I like them because they're super easy. You find a hole, snap it in, click it over, and it's not something you have to unbolt and bolt and unbolt and bolt to try and work with whatever you're working with. So I'll put a couple of these in like that, and I'll probably figure out something so there's not a bunch of slack for that. But yeah, I mean, they hold, especially on this corrugated loom. These ones here, they have little tabs inside that grab the loom so the wires can't shift through it. This one's a little bit of a bigger one for a little bit bigger of a loom, but it's not a big deal. I put one down there, and I use the same ones on the harness for the rail. I use this. The originals, I cut them off just now. They're more of a zip tie style, which, once you put it on, you have no way to take it back off unless you kind of try and find a little pin probe or whatever. So I got these on the rail. Those I tried to find all the same kind of color and size, and kind of try and keep them kind of tidy a little bit. And then with the crank sensor, what I'll do is I'll find, I have a bunch of them, the metal tabs that fold over, or I can make one with a P-clamp just a little bracket that the P-clamp will bolt to the back of the cylinder head over here and then hold the crank wire up, you know, and I kind of like that one to be a little bit tight to hold that wire from falling down. There's really not anything it could fall down and touch down there because the way the exhaust manifold is turned forward. So it's not a horrible big deal, but you know, for me, just personal preference. Again, I don't like this wire just kind of hanging, dangling. So I'll probably end up like kind of zip tying some of the slack up into the main harness. Put that P-clamp piece on the back of the head and kind of not pinch the wire, but kind of squeeze the wire a little bit and hold it in place. I fed the harness, the main harness, through the firewall, through the factory hole, which is a big oval hole. So I will most likely end up making something, maybe like a half shell, 2 half shells, bottom and an upper with a piece of rubber, you know, that I put a hole in and kind of close off that hole there. The fuel pump wires, this is fuel pump, tack signal, and I believe this is the battery fuse. Yeah, so the fuse goes to battery. Those are all out here for right now. Probably where they're gonna stay, with the way that the harness laid out, there's not a lot of slack to get this little section back through the firewall and kind of hide it in the car. I mean, there's a little bit, but not a lot. Mainly with the cam sensor being, you know, that's this plug here, and it's already, you know, fairly tight, which I already see one thing I don't like. Cam sensor went over the harness and it just looked weird. So just kind of I flipped it. Now it's under the harness, so now the harness has a little bit of slack that was kind of holding it up. So I'll put those up there on the firewall. P-clamp them nice. The knock sensor, we'll put the knock sensors in. We got to get a set of knock sensors. I have plenty of the harnesses, so we'll get that on and plugged in. But yeah, I mean, that's, you know, that's how easy this kit is as long as you buy the right kit for your injector harness, or your injector style, I should say. You shouldn't have, you know, any issues if you follow the directions and just do what they tell you to do. Simple as that. And then the main harness, I already took the kick panel off and showed you the main harness comes down there. Let me get that light. So the main harness is laying right there, on the floor right now where it comes through. I took that kick panel off, and I will probably, well, I'm gonna mount the Terminator ECU to the kick panel here in a minute, and then I'll dig through, set this light so it can not blind me, but I can still kind of see. Maybe I can hold it. These are the original ECU plugs here, well, some of them anyways. So within this, I mean, you got a bunch of pinks and reds and more reds and stuff like that. So I'm imagining that one of these will have a key on while cranking voltage, or a 12 volt while cranking voltage, and that's how they powered the factory ECU. So there should be, you know, a battery here as well as a 12 volt ignition while cranking wire, and then the ground, most likely, again, within this harness will be, I'm going to assume it's this black with a white stripe. There will be the ground for the factory ECU, which could tie that right into there. So that's 2 wires inside that need to be connected to get the harness up and going. And then you have the main battery harness, which I'm gonna say I'll probably take the rocker, the door sills off, and stick that harness going back along the, oh, that's dirty in there, along the edge of the carpet here, or just under the edge of the carpet. um, I might come in and go through like this hole here, um, go through there. I might go in there and go up the wheel tub, kind of follow it, whatever wire that is there, um, to keep it out, because we are going to do a cage in the car. um, so not knowing yet where that cage is going to be exactly, I know from the other Mustang I did that his cage came down in that pocket, kind of along the rocker in this back foot panel, if that's what you want to call it, like a kick panel for the foot, the rear seat. His cage kind of came down there, and that's, you know, probably a good enough spot just for me, personal preference. Putting that bar there, when you open the door, here, I'm gonna put this back. No, I'm not. When you open the door, you know, and you look inside the car, you can see that this bar, you know, your main hoop would come up. Man, it's hard to hold this light and do everything at once for me. It would come up, you know, within the door frame. So you, every time you open the door, you would see that bar. Plus, it pushes it forward. And me personally, I think it would be a little bit cleaner to do it mounted up. Stay light. Nope. Oh, blind. To mount it up on this panel here, kind of the cross member that runs across. Seatbelt, you know, kind of take this out, you know, pull the carpet back a bunch. Center console's in the way. Man, that thing is heavy. So we could take this carpet, pull it back, you know, and then you have a good area here to plate or go through to underneath where and kind of come off of the subframe connectors, or the unibody connectors, whatever you want to call them. You can run the bar through the floor, and tie it into there. And what I like to do is I like to weld the bar to the floor, as well as have a plate over, you know, kind of the plates that they give you, the 6x6 plates, 1/8 inch steel or 3/16 steel, whatever they are, that you weld down to the floor. So you would have the bar tied to the subframe connector, tied to the floor, and the plate would tie a bigger section, a bigger area, footprint is basically what it would do. And for now, I think budget-wise on this car, I think it's not going to be, you know, a 10-point cage or a 12-point cage or anything right as of right now. So I think we're going to do the main hoop. We'll do the seat back bar, and then do 2 rear drop bars and 2 cross bars in the car. Probably freaking you out with the light, but that's kind of my thought for right now. But like I said, I'd rather it be, you know, behind the door jamb and kind of a little more of a hidden, so it wouldn't be out here, you know, kind of where the light and the little handle is. You know, it would be out here and go up. You'd see it every time you open the car. So move it back, it would be hidden, and come up along the pillar, go across and down, and then keep these 2 bars tucked nice and tight along kind of the roof line going down the hatch. And oh boy, in the back, like I think it's S&W or one of those companies that makes a ton of these Fox body kits. They basically have a bar that runs from frame rail to frame rail that you tie those into. So that's one way of doing it. I would add the bar in regardless if I didn't tie into that bar. But kind of my thought again, to keep the bars out and cleaner, the unibody is, or the frame for the unibody is going to be right down in here. So I can come down and just kind of kick the bar down, you know, come along, almost follow this hatch line coming down, and then just a little bit of a kick, a little bit sooner than the hatch has that little turn. Have a little kick to where it lines up with the unibody. So it would be a kick in and a kick down at the same time. And tie that in, and then maybe, you know, possibly do an X brace from bar to bar, something like that. That would strengthen the car a lot and stiffen it up a whole lot, keep it from twisting. But that's where I'm at right now. So I have the kick panel, the ECU over here. So I'm going to go ahead and mount the ECU onto the kick panel. It's backwards on it right now. It actually sits this way here. And that way you'll always be able to see the little diagnostic LEDs. So I'm going to go ahead and drill 4 holes and bolt that down and get that going. Okay, so I got the ECU mounted on the kick panel, so it'll sit it'll sit in the car this way here. So the plugs will be on the back side, along with the 1 bar map tube that comes out, which we're not going to use, and then you'll be able to see the lights nice and clear. So I'm going to go ahead and shove this back in there, and then I do need to find a like a push clip to hold the bottom of the kick panel on, but that's not a big deal. I got 100 of those laying around. So I'll get back in the door here, flip this around. Like I said, I will need to find, you know, once we hook the battery up and everything, I can probe and find these. So I'm just going to stick it in there for now. The kick panel, I'm going to stick that in there for now, just so that it, you know, it still looks like a completed car, in a sense. So I'll just put this in there, and goes under the door sill, and then it'll sit like that. That's more or less done. I actually won't even have to pull that back off, so I can find this clip for this real quick and shove that in, and that'll hold that panel in, and that's, you know, that's where the ECU will be mounted. And like I said, I'll most likely, there's a little bolt up there that I can probably just zip that out, put a nice P-clamp on there, and kind of tuck the harness up into there a little bit. There's plenty of room now that we took the heater box out, so we can do that real quick, and that'll finish, more or less, kind of finish the install on the Terminator X. Here's some P-clamps that I have. I think this will be the right one for it. Yep, that'll be the ones. Throw that in there. And then I was looking for a big enough one. See, here's a tray that I have, one of the trays that I have. See, I keep all of these. You know, you never know when you're going to need one. This one's kind of cool. It's got a little metal washer on the back of it. Hopefully it will fit in the hole. If not, worst case, I can do a nut cert and a bolt with like a fender washer, which might even make it easier. So, yeah, that one will work perfect. So it's nice and big. It's got a big washer face to it, so it'll hold that panel on there nice and tight. It sits under there good. It's back under the sill plate. So that's basically it. Other than plugging the two harnesses in, which, I mean, you can't really get too much easier than just pushing two plugs in. So you guys kind of get the idea of how to do that. That's one. Makes a nice big click. And you know it's engaged. Yank the other one around. And another nice big click. And that's the whole main harness. One thing to note though is this is your CAN wire right here for the harness. Like the ECU output, basically, if you want to hook up to your laptop, and this is where you plug your handheld into. I do suggest with the Holley, with these kits, get the CAN to dual USB, or it's a splitter, so you can plug your 3.5-inch screen in, as well as have your USB coming out for like hooking up your laptop or tablet or whatever you're using. So I think it's a CAN to CAN, like dual splitter piece, and then after that you'll have to get the CAN to USB wire, which I have on the S10. But I will say it makes it, you know, it's not hard, but the clip is small and it fits really, really tight, which is good. It just makes it difficult whenever I want to change something that, you know, maybe I don't fully understand in the handheld, that I have to unplug the handheld and plug the USB in, you know, or vice versa. Either I gotta, you know, I have the handheld mounted in the truck, and that's fine and good for like when we go racing with it, but kind of when I'm just sitting, I want to be able to look at certain things on the laptop, or I use a tablet, and then you know, it's a little bit easier to have other parameters set up on the handheld so that you can kind of see both, and you know, you don't have to switch back and forth. You just basically unplug the USB from your laptop or tablet or whatever you're using, and leave it laying on the floor, or tuck it up into, like, the glove box is a good place to put it. You know, you can leave it in there and you don't have to keep track of the wire or whatever. So that's just a, you know, a little personal what I would do, along with ordering the Terminator X or X Max, or that's just what I would do. I would get the CAN splitter, and then get the CAN to USB wire, get it all in the same order. This way it comes. Like with mine, I had the issue of not being able to change the map sensor under the handheld. It was kind of the, I don't want to say the original version of the software, but it wasn't as updated as the software is now, so it didn't give you as many map choices. And it didn't give me it still doesn't give me the map sensor I use. I don't believe it does. Last time I looked, it didn't. I use the map sensor off of a Duramax diesel. So it is actually, it's like a 3.3 bar or 3.5 bar. I cannot remember where it is on my truck right now. Oh, it's here now. I moved it up to like a vacuum block. But this map sensor is off of Duramax, so it's a 3.3 bar or something like that. So the settings are vastly different. And if you don't have those settings, as you see in my video of startup, it will run like complete crap. It won't run right, and you'll get frustrated, and you'll want to tear the system off, and that's got nothing to do with the system. It's actually more or less a user setting that's not put in right. The only thing I have left is to run the main battery harness. I mean, which I can do and have it in there. I have inputs and outputs to set up on it as well, which I'm going to kind of do it in a different video. We do have the Mac valves here. I don't have the wastegate set up yet, so that's something else I have to do. Is I have to make the branch for the wastegate to mount on, which again I'm a little torn on where to put it, but I'm thinking of coming off the bottom where I made the collector, coming off of there, and maybe turning it or bringing it up and out over to here, so it's kind of an accessible thing. I just gotta watch my compressor outlet, which obviously you can turn and do all kinds of cool stuff with. So it's kind of my thought. The boost solenoids, thinking they'll look like mine, where we take the two Mac valves and join them together. I think it's got, man, I can never remember. I think it's got a T. Yeah, it's got a T in the middle to go down, I believe. Oh, look at it. Yeah, it's got a T in the middle. So it's got two short nipples, a T in the middle. It goes down to the push lock. And then, you come off of this side. None of mine's hooked up right now because I keep taking my front end off. So we have the Mac valves, and we have, I have a ton of the push lock fittings. So I just have to decide where I want to mount the Mac valves. And then that'll be, another harness that has to run over to, excuse me, the inputs and outputs. So I'll have to build that harness and put nice wrap on it. But that's kind of it for right now until you get more parts. So once we get parts, a few more parts, she'll be ready for her first startup, and I'll make sure to record it, post it up, and like I said, I'm going to do a video again once I get the coils mounted, everything 100%, the intake on it and everything. I'm going to do a full video of wiring the inputs, the outputs, wiring them up, and then going into the Terminator X software and utilizing how to, or not utilizing, but how to utilize each input and output. And it's actually very simple once you just kind of get the hang of it one or two times, or you just go through the software thorough enough. It's not that hard to do. But I'll walk through and show you how to set up. This car will have two-step, and it'll have boost control, it'll have electric fan, and I think that's about it for the inputs and outputs on this one right now. We don't have a trans brake in it yet. That'll be later on down the road. So, and again, with the fuel pump, I'm going to use the factory harness, which I believe will come out in those plugs in that kick panel. And I'll do a continuity test on it. And then this way here, I can mount the second relay for the fuel pump inside that kick panel or on the firewall, or whichever way is cleaner and looks better and kind of keeps it hidden. But I'll build the relay plug. I build all the plugs. I buy the relays with the plugs and the pins, so I could just build them instead of trying to solder wires together or crimp them together or do whatever. It's a little bit of a cleaner way of doing it. So I'll build that, tie that in, and this way I keep all my, I got my battery feed there. I believe there's two battery feeds there. I'm not 100% on that, but I believe there's two battery feeds there, so I can feed the relay with one. There's ignition that I can feed, so I should have enough wires there. I don't have to string a bunch of wires. and the fuel pump will already be wired up. It's already on the factory plug that comes up through the back and has the crash sensor, I believe these cars had, where it shuts the fuel pump off. It's hit from the back, and they already removed it and wire nutted it back together. So I'll just have to crimp that connection together real good with some heat shrink tube. But that's it for now. I appreciate you watching. You know, we appreciate you watching. I'm gonna repeat myself. Appreciate you watching. Give us a like, a subscribe, hit the bell to notify you all the new videos and stuff. Leave us a comment. Write a good long comment. Questions, anything you have. I'll be more than happy to attend to them. Especially now, times that we have, everything is a little crazy. So I have a little extra time on my hands sometimes. But I enjoy reacting with people, interacting with people, not reacting, interacting with people, answering questions. If I know the answer, I'm more than happy to share it with them, with you. So yeah, hit the like, subscribe, leave a comment. Appreciate it.